This is the best intro music ever.
This is amazing. Thank you.
I'm in love. I want to do this all the time. This should be the soundtrack to my life. Oh, we have so much to talk about. First of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Also, that was kind of a tepid response. We can raise the roof. I mean, come on. We're about to head into lunch. Things are happening. This conversation is going to be amazing. Leslie in his picture looks like he has a terrible headache, probably brought on by Silicon Valley, but we'll talk about that in a bit. First question, because you're one of the senior most developer guys over there. Why can't I do threaded conversations on Slack? Why?
Why? It's a good question. It's a hard problem to solve. And as we try to do at Slack, everything's done with craftsmanship. So it takes time, it takes effort. And these are things that we're working on.
Yeah.
So hopefully soon.
Can you give me a timing?
Can't give you a timing. Hopefully you'll still have hair when it comes out.
2017? My hair isn't going anywhere. Unfortunately, this is all Eastern European.
Help out here, please.
So what about bots? Bots have been the hot thing for the past year. Where do you fall on the bot spectrum? What role will they play within Slack?
I don't know if I can say what role they will play. They're definitely a technology we like to use. We want people to get used to using bots. We've actually done some experiments and seen how people are they're very accepting of suggestions. They're very accepting of Slackbot, giving them suggestions and asking them questions and taking them through. And we will continue to experiment in that. We will probably roll some things out in the near future with bots. But it's definitely a way for people to learn more. There's a great bot out there right now called IntroBot. Not shilling for anyone, just saying it's a great way for people who join a new team for them to figure out who they are, where they came from, what their interests are. And I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Mm-hmm. This is actually just the obligatory questioning period where I throw a bunch of buzzwords at you about things that are hot in tech right now and make you respond. So I apologize for that.
Nope.
What about AI?
What about AI? When it really works, I think we'll use it. It's still not quite there yet. No one wants to unleash Skynet on us.
Right.
So when we get a little bit better.
But I mean, is there really going to be this robot overlord future where Skynet takes over everything and we're all just slaves to the machine? Oh, we kind of are already.
We kind of are, yeah. It's like you were asking where your phone was before you came on stage. So yeah, we're slaves.
Well, that was more to connect with this fine audience because I wanted to give them a chance to ask you questions through the whole magic of Twitter.
Ooh.
Although they could have Slacked me too, I guess. I could have set up a Slack channel for the room.
Yeah, we should probably have one, right?
Well, we should. Maybe we'll do that next year. Things to think about for TechCrunch Disrupt 2017. So, AI is tricky. It's a hard thing. You say it's not quite there yet. People are trying to recruit talent, and there's only a select group, or hypothetically, there's only a select group of people one can pull from for this talent. Is that hypothesis correct? Or can you find great AI engineers across the country? Where would you look for great AI engineers?
Wow, that's a good question. I would just look around. I mean, definitely, just look around. Look around the room. I'm sure there's some in here right now. I think where I would look is any place that's doing that type of work, right? And it's not just confined to MIT or Stanford or Cal. It's happening in Detroit with what the auto manufacturers are doing. It's happening in Richmond, Virginia, with what Capital One is doing for credit cards. So it's happening with the U.S. government in Washington, D.C. with them surveilling everything we're doing.
Right.
So you can start looking everywhere for talent like that.
Where are you as Slack looking for talent right now? What's on your agenda?
What's on my agenda? I will speak for me. I cannot speak for everybody at Slack, but I think we look for people who can essentially who are good at what they do, who are good programmers from an engineering perspective. We give everyone a coding. I hate saying coding exercise. It's more of a coding exercise, and then it's something that's graded blindly.
Right.
So we don't know who they are. The
Right.
graders don't know who they are. The graders don't know where they went to school. The graders don't know if they went to school. The graders don't know if they're a man or woman or other. They just know that that they did this exercise, and then we grade them. And then if they do fairly well in that, based upon their ranking in our internal ranking system, we have a conversation with them and bring them in.
Now that's the way that Slack has privileged sort of diversity on one level, right? And has managed to create one of the more diverse workforces in the Valley, I think in tech in general. But there's also a geographic diversity to the things that you're doing, and I wonder if y'all are looking to expand that at all. So are there places where you would go as Slack to try and recruit new talent or open new facilities to get things done?
We just softball that one to me, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there's some tough ones. They're coming.
I mean, definitely we look all over the country for talent. We look just not in Silicon Valley, but I think I just had somebody start who was coming from Tennessee. As if, since you softballed the question to me, we are opening up a facility in the most diverse city in North America. And before anybody tries to figure out what that is, it's actually Toronto. Toronto in Canada has one of the most diverse populations in the world. 47% of their population is foreign-born. It's an amazing city. We are, partly a Canadian company. Stuart Butterfield, as you know, is Canadian. So it makes a lot of sense to have a presence there as well.
So how important to the company is something like economic diversification among socioeconomic sort of privileging? Because when I think of Toronto, I don't think of that as a city that's really struggling economically or financially. This is just a sort of nod to the diversity of the city itself. Is that why y'all are setting up camp there?
At the end of the day, we're a business, and we
Right.
have to look around for places where we think we can have the best business climate in order to grow an office. Economic diversity is as important as any other diversity. I mean, you look around this country and you can tell that there are cities who have been totally left out of the tech ecosystem. Would I like to be in other cities in the United States, like Detroit, like Richmond, like Nashville? Of course. And I think everybody would. And I think in the future we can look to do that. But right now we chose Toronto.
No, but I was watching an interview that you did with the guys at ours. I guess like a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and you talk about the ways in which Oakland is changing, and you kind of had some harsh words for what's going on in Oakland, and I'm wondering if that's if there are ways to do economic diversification poorly or ways to go into an urban environment and not do it right, and that's what you saw in your experience when you went back to Oakland, or if there's something else going on there.
I mean, you look, we're in San Francisco, so let's talk about San Francisco, which is a really good example. You look at the mid-market area where Twitter is, where several other companies, where Square is, where Uber is, and you see that there's been an increase in economic activity, but it's really at the high end, and it has really left people at the low end out.
Right.
That area hasn't changed as much as it could, and I think that's, not to blame San Francisco, but that was not done as well as it could.
Oh, please, if you want to blame San Francisco, please, by all means, go ahead.
But at the end of the day, you look around, you're like, yeah, you have great companies that are now restaurants, but it's really serving a demographic that is not the demographic that's been living in those areas for decades. And the same thing in Oakland. And I think that we in tech have a great opportunity to do more than just move in and gentrify, right? We can actually be part of the solution.
Right.
We can actually engage the neighborhood. We can actually help people, like a rising tide lifts all boats. We can raise everyone up, and we need to do it more from how do we get people in this neighborhood into good paying jobs? How do we improve their economic condition? Not how do we give their schools computers, or how do we open up a place where people can go and play? That's great, right? But you really have to raise the entire neighborhood up economically.
You've actually said that Silicon Valley is hostile, like actively hostile to diversity. How has that not affected the way that things work at Slack? Is it this blind sort of admissions test that you do up front, or has it affected Slack?
I think it's that. I think it's the intentionality that people at Slack, from Stuart to everyone else has. We have conversations at Slack I've never had any other place about how we're doing hiring and who we're hiring and why we're hiring them. We don't take things like where you went to school into consideration. We could care less if you went to Cal, Stanford, MIT, or if you went to San Jose State, San Luis Obispo, or University of Miami. We don't care. So, and this is something that has been ingrained in Silicon Valley. We want graduates from these schools. We want you to work at these companies. And we don't care about that. And I think that has been a huge part. What has also been a huge part is that once you start at a very early age and very early development in your company, it makes it easier because you're not starting from way back. Facebook, Google, Twitter, thousands of employees, and they are just so far behind. And then they also have reputations. People walk in and they don't see anybody that looks like them. Why would they want to work there?
Right. Well, so how does one solve that problem? I would think because things are so woefully bad in Silicon Valley, and they really are. I mean, if you look at the diversity numbers from any of the top tech companies out here, it's really bad. And when you look across at what happened in the American education system, if you look at what happened with American manufacturing, there were actually people put in place quotas, and that's what managed to change the game in these companies, these big industrial companies and in American education. Why would Silicon Valley not look at that as a very simple solution to what is, in fact, an endemic problem?
Quotas are just wrong, and they're bad, and they don't work. And they don't work.
Do they not? I mean, do they not work?
I don't think they work. And in particular, I think it's another way of saying we won't, that we won't lower the bar, right? It plays into that exact same argument. It's like you have to have quotas, so we're going to get people who aren't qualified. And that is not what anybody's saying. What I'm saying, and I think what other people are saying, is that we want, one, a level playing field. You need to have a level playing field. And how you level the playing field is that you don't go to places like MIT, you don't go to places, and focus on MIT and Cal and Stanford and CMU. You don't focus on places that don't have diversity, right? So that's not about quotas, that's about leveling the playing field. If you want to talk about quotas, you look at the ethnic diversity of any of those universities, and that's a quota for people who are white, that's a quota for people who are Asian, right? So I think you don't, I don't want to have to talk about this again because I don't believe in quotas. I think they're inherently wrong, and I think they're realistic solutions that don't have quotas attached to them.
Right. I mean, I understand that, and to a certain extent, of course, there's got to be a better system. It's a pretty blunt instrument, but at the same time, I mean, I've seen other interviews with you where you talk about the sort of endemic and systemic nature of privilege and how people need to actually step back from the table to make room for other people. I think you talked about that in the Ars interview. And I think that, I don't know, maybe this is a really tough issue to talk about, but I think it's important to do so. And I just wonder what the space looks like, how that stepping back works when privilege is so institutionalized that it's not even something that most people recognize.
I have a data point to bring up. There's an organization called forward.us, fwd.us. It's a group set up by a diverse group of entrepreneurs, Mark Zuckerberg, Vinod Khosla. You look at the page, it's probably looking much like diversity does look like, and they are looking to raise the H-1B visa cap, which I support, strangely enough, right? I think it's a great thing. Let's do that. But they got together to raise the H-1B visa cap. The lobbying firms for these companies, that are supporting there, spend anywhere between $3 and $4 million per quarter on lobbying. $3 to $4 million per quarter. So you're looking at up to $12 million a year on raising the H-1B visa cap. Why don't we have something like that for increasing diversity and increasing inclusion? Right? I think that's a place where you can start. You get the people who are doing something like that, and apply it to the United States, apply it to less diverse areas. And you can take another data point that I'm going to try to tie two things together. Facebook, 37% of their engineering team is Asian. Google, it's upwards of 40%. Twitter, it's 37%. You look at the amount of money they spend in Asia overall, anywhere between 25 and 50 million per year since 2012. Is it any wonder they have those percentages of Asians? No, it's not. So what if we were to spend that here? What if we were to spend that in Detroit? What if we were to spend that in Richmond? What if we were to spend that in Washington, D.C.? Would we have a more diverse workplace? I think so.
Well, isn't that sort of a matter, just playing devil's advocate, isn't that sort of a matter of market expansion as well as anything? Like, you look at like, these companies are trying to go abroad and internationalize and like grow in global markets. And a way to do that is to set up, research centers and things like that and reach out to those countries. Maybe I'm conflating two issues and confusing two interviews that you did. I did a lot of research for this, I'm sorry. If the market is so saturated in the US, do these companies need to set up shops in all these different areas to reach out to these communities?
They don't need to set up shop at the same scale, right? Do you want to put 2,000 people? Probably not. You don't have to. Could you put 200? Definitely.
Right.
It's a drop in the hat for Google. It's a drop in the hat for Facebook. And it's actually cost competitive. These areas are cost competitive to areas in India and areas in China. I've had teams, I've managed over 100 people in India. I know what the cost structure looks like, and you could do the same thing here, at a much lower scale. And that does something interesting, right? So imagine if you did go to Detroit, which Google now has done. If you go to Richmond, right, that have large, diverse populations, all of a sudden you see people in those neighborhoods, people see their neighbors in these well-paying jobs. And they start to aspire to that. That's number one. Number two, people who want advancement know they have to come back to headquarters. So you're going to have people coming to San Francisco. You're going to have people going to Cupertino, going to Menlo Park, going to Mountain View. And what happens when you hire diverse people and you create an inclusive environment? They talk to their friends.
Right.
And their networks are going to look like them. And they're going to hire their friends and they're going to hire their associates who look a lot like them. And then you start to make inroads into this problem that these companies have spent the last 3 years and tens of millions of dollars and have made virtually no impact whatsoever.
So we've been beating up on a lot of very large tech companies. Let's go down a level and beat up on some other people. Criticism, it's healthy criticism. Is the same true of the entrepreneurial community? When you go down to startups and you look at what's happening with entrepreneurship and investment from VCs into tech startups, would you advise young entrepreneurs to stay in the Valley to build their companies?
Good question, and probably not. It's hard to encourage someone to stay in a place that is hostile to them. And I said this, and I'm going to keep repeating it. When you walk into one of the offices in Sand Hill Road, and people have a preconceived notion about who you are based upon how you look, whether you're African American, Hispanic, or a woman, or a woman, entrepreneur like Morgan, who was up here a moment ago,
right,
who talked about her struggles in fundraising. She has an amazing platform and an amazing market opportunity, and it's very difficult for her to get funding.
Yep.
So why would you stay in a place that is hostile to you?
Right.
There are smaller markets. There are private equity firms. There's. To shout out to Power Moves New Orleans. There's Startup Detroit, Invest Detroit. There are small communities there that can actually help. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but a year or so ago, he actually said if I was going to create another startup, I'd go to Detroit.
Right. Well, it might have been Dan Gilbert who was kind of.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. I'm bad on
drumming
names.
for Detroit because, that he'd be the only investor in town, right? Because there are these markets that exist, but the capital that's there isn't as extensive. That's just a given, right?
You're right, but if the capital's not available to you, the capital's not available to you, right? So if you walk in and people are just like, oh, well, and this has happened, and I am an advisor for some companies. I mentor entrepreneurs of color, and I've heard stories where people have gone in and said, yeah, you need a male co-founder. You need to get more white people in your team because
right,
having a team of 6 black people doesn't look good. I've heard these stories from people, and things that will never be said to an Asian or a white co-founder in Silicon Valley, ever.
So does that mean that one should just try to ignore that capital completely? Or is there a solution, or is it just so entrenched here that people should just not worry about it at all?
Silicon Valley follows. So VCs follow, and they do fast following. So if you have a big hit someplace else, whether or not it's a person of color, and I hope that it is, VCs will follow. They'll show up. Rodney Williams at Listener, if he goes big, trust me,
right,
they will follow. And this
right,
is what needs to happen. And I hope it does, because I think that's the fast track.
Well, we are almost out of time, and I think we can just end it there. This is an incredible conversation. I hope we get to continue it over many other events like this one and just in person. It's a pleasure talking to you, sir. Really.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.